What was it really like being on The Voice? That's one of the most frequent questions that I get asked by people on pretty much a weekly basis. And it's typically followed up by a bullet point list of pretty much the same other questions relating to it. So I figured I might as well make a video and answer all of them right here. My name is Wilkes. I was on season 14 of The Voice. I had really long red hair at the time. I don't really look like I did back then because I cut my hair, and apparently that makes a gigantic difference. This is actually not a good representation of my new hairstyle. I woke up and it won't cooperate, so you're just going to have to deal with that for this video. I don't know, it looks like kind of looks like I'm wearing a wig. Either way, this is what I looked like when I was on the show. In this video, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what it was actually like to be on the show based off of the questions that I get from people most often. Whether you're a consumer of the show or a singer who is considering auditioning for the show, this video should give you a little bit of clarity on what it's like, whether you just want to know or you're planning on trying it out. Before I get to that, I have one thing I have to do very quick. I promise it will be quick. Stick with me. If you've seen other videos on my channel, you know that I give away a guitar every month. This month, I'm giving away a 1977 Fender Telecaster. It's a beautiful guitar. It plays amazing. It looks amazing. Everything about it is awesome. Since this video is not a guitar-related video, here's a clip of me playing this guitar covering a Nirvana song, just so you can hear what it sounds like. Today is the last day you can enter to win this guitar. Go to go.getenteredtowin.com/Wilkes and get yourself entered. It ends tonight at 11:59 PST. If I could enter into my own competition, this would be the one that I would be trying to win. Go.getenteredtowin.com/Wilkes and win this 1977 Fender Telecaster. The first question I get asked about The Voice most often is, what was the process like to get on the show? My experience was a little bit different than some people. I didn't go to that big cattle call audition or a bunch of subsequent auditions that ramp up to the blind audition. The most common way, I think, to get on the show is you do the big cattle call, you get called back to another audition, and then another audition, and then a producer audition, and then an executive producer audition, and then they fly you out to LA, and there's all these steps. I don't necessarily think this is not public knowledge, but they don't really put it out there as part of the process just because it's not as entertaining of a story. But The Voice has scouts, and a scout found me on the internet, I think on YouTube or Instagram or something, and reached out to me over email and then called me. I thought it was a spam email at first, and then I ignored the phone call, but she left a voicemail saying that she was contacting me to see if I was interested in being on The Voice. So I called her back, and really long story short, I'm not a big fan of singing shows. I've never liked The Voice. I've never liked American Idol. I just, it's always seemed a little gimmicky to me and a little bit like glorified karaoke. That's what I used to think before I was on the show. I did change my mind. I don't believe that way anymore. But when she called me, I didn't want to do it. She asked me about it, and I told her basically I'm not interested. Went upstairs, told my wife, basically it was like, there's this funny story. Somebody called me from The Voice and wants me to be on the show. You know how I feel about those shows. So I told her no. And my wife looked at me and was like, you need to go back downstairs, call her immediately, and tell her you'll do it. In the majority of cases in my life, my wife knows way better than I do, so I promptly called her back and told her I would do it. So I don't have this glamorous story about singing this song and that song and all this. I was sought out by a scout. I did do one executive producer audition in Charleston, I think, but then they flew me out to Los Angeles. So my process of getting on the show was a lot quicker and a lot different, and I was a lot more reluctant than most people probably. If you want to hear that story in full, I can tell it. It's a very convoluted story. There's a lot of things going on there with the songs that I chose to sing in the audition and all that stuff, but I'm not going to go into it for this video because it'll just make it way too long. But if you're interested in it, let me know in the comments. I'll go into more depth about it in a different video. The second question that I get very often from people is, was The Voice your big break? Or can The Voice be your big break? First off, I don't even think I know or anyone else knows what a big break even is. That's a very subjective and nuanced kind of conversation. But for the most part, I actually don't think The Voice is a platform to get your big break. They will say that to you a lot on the show in interviews and things like that with the producers and some of the B-roll they filmed. They do mention your big break and the most important song you'll ever sing in your life and all that kind of stuff. It definitely is a platform that can get way more eyes on you, and it can propel your career momentarily to get yourself further down the road, but it's not a big break. Like some people think when you go on The Voice, you get there and you're instantly doing world tours and making tons of money, and just because I was on The Voice, I now make $1 million a year and I can go anywhere I want and play for anyone and sell out clubs everywhere. It is a very powerful show and it has a lot of reach, but it doesn't have that kind of power. It's not going to make you an overnight success. It's honestly about the equivalent of having a viral video on the internet. Just for perspective, when I went on The Voice, I had 5,000 Instagram followers. When I came off The Voice, I had 14,000 Instagram followers, which over the next year dropped down to 11,000 followers. Just because the way that it works, you get TV following, and when you're not on TV, you lose some of your TV following. So I went in with 5,000, got up to 14, and then by the time some people left, I was down to 11. I sat at 11,000 for a couple of years. Then recently I did a sad version of Pharrell's Happy, and I got 2 million views on Instagram, and I hit 62,000 from that video. So The Voice got me from 5 to 11, and then one viral video got me from 11 to 62. It does have reach, it does make a difference, but it's not the golden ticket that people think it is. I still think it's very valuable, and I'm still glad I did it. And if you have an opportunity, I think you should do it, but it's not that golden ticket change your life thing that you might think it is, or that they might even tell you that it is when you get there. It's just not true. Why is that? First and foremost, you have to remember The Voice is a TV show. It's not a show that discovers musicians whose main focus is to get singers and artists exposure to make careers. That is something that they value, but first and foremost, they have to be a TV show. If they don't get good ratings and they're not a good TV show, they won't exist. They can't help any singers or any artist if they're not a TV show anymore. So first and foremost, they have to be a good TV show, and that's what they care about the most. So you have to go in there with the mindset of, I'm a singer, I'm an artist, I'm a musician, I'm whatever, but I'm a person that's on a TV show right now. So if what's best for your career isn't what's best for the TV show, they're going to pick what's best for the TV show. I'll get more into that a little bit later. Another question I get very, very often that kind of hinges on the last one is, can The Voice make you famous? Did The Voice make you famous? No. Again, the show doesn't have that kind of reach. There's typically 4 famous people on the show. 5. 4 coaches and Carson Daly. First off, who gives a crap about being famous anyways? That's not why I went. I don't care about being famous. But a lot of people think when you go on that show that you come away rich and famous. It's not true. People consume TV shows very differently than they consume music. This is my experience. This might not be 100% true, but in my experience, this is how it was for me. When people discover my music, they latch onto me as a singer-songwriter, artist, musician, and they connect with me on a deep level because of my music. When I release more music, it's more of what they want. When I was on The Voice, I was a character on a TV show. So when I became not the character on the TV show that they love and follow anymore, then I was just some guy that used to do the thing that they like. So people became less interested. So while I was on The Voice, I had a ton of eyes on me because I was on their favorite show. When I got off The Voice, they kind of care for a minute, and then they realize, oh yeah, I really just like The Voice. So now I'm going to follow this new season's group of musicians. So you do get a lot of eyes on you. You do get a lot of exposure, but a lot of them hop from season to season, and they fangirl and fanboy over whoever's on the season at the time, and once you're off of it, it loses a lot of its luster. Again, if you go into it knowing this, you won't be surprised and you won't be disappointed, because I went into the show a little older. I wasn't 17 or 18 years old and completely naive about it, so I knew it was coming. But that is the reality of it, is a lot of people consume The Voice as a show, and a lot of the contestants are characters on this TV show. It is cool, it does help, it gets you a lot of exposure, but it's not what people think it is as far as a complete career booster. A big question that I get really often is, why did you choose Team Blake? There's a few reasons for that. If you haven't seen my season, the coaches were Blake Shelton, Alicia Keys, Kelly Clarkson, and Adam Levine. Adam and Blake turned around for me. The show kind of wanted me to be the rock guy, which I don't really see myself as 100%, but I was one of the token rock guys on that season. So I knew when Blake and Adam turned around that the majority of people were going to think that I was going to go with Adam, because I sang a song by the Wallflowers. I looked like the rock guy. They were telling everybody that's what I was. So people naturally were going to assume that I was going to go with Adam Levine, which there are some days that I wish I would have chosen Adam. Adam, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I think I might should have chosen you, but I'm not totally sure about that. Either way, thank you for turning around. Sorry I didn't choose you. Like I said earlier, The Voice is first and foremost a TV show, so I was trying to strategize my time on The Voice to get through as far as I could by making it a good TV show. And one thing that makes TV good is drama. So I knew people were going to think that I was going to choose Adam, so I chose Blake just so people would go, oh, he chose Blake. I didn't expect him to choose Blake. That's why I chose Blake. I do like Blake. I think he's a cool guy. He's a funny guy. He's very entertaining. Musically, I do align a lot more with Adam Levine, but I chose Blake for drama. Blake, if you're watching, sorry you had to hear that, but it's the truth. Full disclosure, when I was backstage before I went out for my blind audition, we found out that Alicia Keys had just filled up her team. If I could have chosen anybody, I definitely would have chosen Alicia. She's iconic, and I would have loved to have been coached in any manner by Alicia Keys. But her team was full when I got up, so I'm not saying she would have turned around, but she couldn't turn around even if she wanted to. Kelly's team was also full, so I only had the 2 dudes as options. They were good options. But things might have gone differently if Alicia and Kelly didn't have full teams. Alicia and Kelly, I wish you could have turned around. I'm going to tell myself that you would have, just to make me feel better. Funny enough, out of all the coaches, including my own, Alicia is the one that said the most encouraging thing to me out of everybody. And I have a video of her saying it in my phone. And when I get discouraged, I watch that video often.
I really like you, Wilkes. You're special, man. You have something, you don't try to do it. You just are it. And like, there's something really powerful about you. It's just very rare. You're very special, Wilkes.
So Alicia, thank you so much for saying that. You've gotten me through a lot of crappy times. And a lot of times I wanted to quit. Speaking of the coaches, another question I get asked all the time is, do the coaches coach? How much do the coaches coach? How much influence do they have on what you do? Did I learn anything from Blake? What are pointers that I took away from Blake? This is another one of those situations where I have to speak from my experience because I know a lot of other singers have had a different experience on the show than me, but this is my experience. So don't take this as what's true all the time. It was only true for me and probably a few other people. It's different for everybody that goes on the show. When I went on the show, I'd already been a professional musician for 15 years. So I had a ton of experience. I wasn't super green. I wasn't like some of the 14-year-old kids that go on there and super inexperienced and need to be coached at every single turn. So what happened when I was on the show, with every single song, I went into the room with Blake. Really, the only time you really spend with the coaches is 30 minutes when you're rehearsing the song, pretty much. You prepare your version of the song, you go over it a couple of times with the band, and then you have about a 30-minute slot to go over it 3 or 4 times with the coach in the room. So between every performance, I got about 30 minutes with Blake. What happened with me every time was I got in the room, we shook hands, maybe made a joke right quick, the band went into the song, I played the song, and then Blake walked over, gave me a high five and said, "Great job, do that." I'm not saying I know what I'm doing so much that Blake Shelton can't give me pointers. It was more like, I'm experienced, I've done this a lot, this is already what I do, and Blake knew that. That's probably why I turned his chair to begin with. So for me, he didn't give me any pointers or any gold nuggets or anything. He just gave me a high five and said, "Great job," which was in itself obviously very encouraging. Funny thing is, my last song that I played in the rehearsal to do that song, afterwards, Blake came over, gave me a five, gave me a hug, looked me in the eyes and said, "I want to be the first person to congratulate you on making it to the finale." And then the next day I played that song live on TV and he cut me from the team. So that is what it is. Speaking of getting cut from the show, the next question I get very often is, are you upset that you didn't win? And that is a definitive no. If you were to go around and talk to all the contestants and you pulled out all the people that are experienced in the music industry, know how record deals work, know how publishing deals work, and they know the ins and outs of the business, and you put them on one side of the room, and then you take all the other kids who were there and think they're there for their golden ticket and put them on the other side of the room and ask them, do you want to win? The inexperienced side would say, I want nothing more than to win The Voice that will change my life. If you ask the experienced side of the room, they will all say, heck no, I want to get as far as I can without winning, but I do not want that contract. I didn't make it quite as far as I wanted to make it. I wanted to make it a couple of rounds farther, but I did not want to win. You know, if you watch these shows, a lot of the times when people win, they get locked up in these record deals. They never see the light of day because typically if you sign a record deal, best case situation, you want the record label to find you, seek you out, fall in love with you, and offer you a record deal because they believe in you, which means they'll get behind you, they'll put money behind you, and they'll do everything they can to help you succeed. Put yourself in the record label's shoes to where you've signed a contract with a TV show, and now whoever wins that show automatically gets on your record label. You didn't discover them, you don't necessarily believe in them or see their vision, you're just getting the winner of a TV show. So one reason why artists get shelved a lot when they win those shows and tied into these deals they can't get out of is because the label didn't necessarily want them on their roster to begin with. They just got in there by winning a show, and that's not the kind of deal you want to get in with anybody. It would be kind of like if you got your dream job, but the reason you got it is because your grandma convinced the boss to hire you. Yeah, you technically have your dream job, but the way that you got there, they don't necessarily want you there. They just made a deal with your grandma. It's a similar situation. I did not want that contract. Next question I get all the time: how do you pick your songs? A lot of people on the show pick songs they want to pick, and it works out. They get cleared and they're able to do it. My experience, again, I didn't get to play any of the songs I wanted to play because it just so happens that most of my favorite bands either don't allow their songs to be played on TV shows, or those songs have been played too much on The Voice and they wanted to switch it up, or the picture they were trying to paint with me as an artist of being the rock guy, it didn't align with that narrative enough. So for whatever reason, at every turn I ended up not being able to do any of the songs I wanted to do. So the way that my songs were chosen was my blind audition song was given to me. I tried to get out of doing it and I wanted to do a different song, but that didn't work out. So I did the blind audition song they gave me, and then after that, for my second song, we went back and forth so much and none of my songs got approved that they ended up giving me a list of, I don't remember, maybe 200 songs, something like that, and told me to go through and highlight the ones that I'd be interested in doing. Really wasn't interested in doing any of them, to be honest with you, but I just went through and chose the ones that would be, back to that TV drama thing, chose the ones that would be the most unexpected for me. So I saw Miley Cyrus, The Climb, for instance, and chose that one because nobody would expect me to do it. That ended up being the game that I played the rest of the season. The one exception being my last song, which was Don't Speak by No Doubt. I did request that song and it did get approved, but the reason I requested that song, for one, No Doubt's epic, and I had this really brooding sounding version of it that I made that I knew they would be into because it's different. But the main reason I chose that is because I was on Blake's team and Blake's girlfriend was Gwen Stefani. So more TV stuff. I wanted my coach to be like, oh, well, that's my girlfriend. So that's the reason I chose that song. Another thing I get asked a lot: are you happy with how you performed? Which when people ask me that, sometimes I'm like, do you think I performed well and you're making sure I'm happy too? Or do you think I blew it and you want to make sure I know it? Don't really know where that question comes from, but funny enough, the answer is no. I don't think I sang the best that I could sing. I don't think I performed the best that I could perform. I think there's a lot of things that go into that. Live TV, for one thing, is super maddening for a lot of reasons. You can probably imagine with a studio audience of a few hundred people knowing that it's being broadcasted to millions of people and you don't really know what the TV mix sounds like. We've all watched TV shows that have been live and thought, this sounds absolutely terrible. The Grammys have sounded awful. Tons of live performances on The Voice are mixed terrible. AGT. There's so many examples of TV shows that I've watched live and thought they did this artist real dirty because this mix sounds really, really bad. So the whole time you're wondering, what does this even sound like on TV? I could be killing it and it might sound terrible. So that gets you in your head a little bit. But the two main reasons that I'm not super stoked about how my performances turned out is, one, back to the songs. I wasn't really feeling any of those songs. They just gave them to me and I was kind of indifferent to them. So that affected me a little bit. But also, I hate in-ear monitors. I know a lot of musicians and a lot of singers love in-ear monitors. When I got started, we just used floor wedges, and typically we were in clubs where the mix was not great and you just turned your floor wedge up super loud, so there was a ton of stage volume with the wedge, and then the amps and the drums behind you, and the room engulfs you in the whole thing. In-ear monitors, to me, they close me off and everything sounds like a bad demo, and I hate it. On The Voice in the first round, you have a floor wedge underneath the stage. So for my blind audition, I had a floor wedge, and I think I sang a little better on my blind audition, even though I think my floor wedge might have been off. Couldn't really hear anything, so I was pretty much just feeding off the house, but I at least had a little bit of support coming from something. I just don't think it was very loud. But after that first round of blind auditions, they give you a pair of in-ears and everybody is on in-ear monitors. If you don't know what in-ear monitors are, they're basically headphones that are molded to the inside of your ears, and when you put them in, it's borderline noise cancellation, so you don't really hear anything else. It's very closed off sounding. A lot of people, like I said, love it. So what ended up happening for me was I would get 2 seconds into the song. If you watch any of my performances, you'll see after a couple of lines, I do this, popping out my in-ear to hang off my shoulder. I keep one in just for whatever reason, but I also don't like how that throws my equilibrium off and it just sounds weird in mono. So somewhere into verse 1, I would end up popping the other one out. So I ended up singing with no monitors, and there's no floor wedges because they take them away when they give you the in-ears. And basically all I could hear was drums because all those guys are on in-ears too, so they don't have amps on stage. I can hear the drums behind me and I can hear the crowd, and I hear the PA of what the crowd's hearing, but it's way out. It's just a weird situation. So it sounded terrible, and I was doing my best. Even though I did my best, I didn't do my best. I watch those videos sometimes and I just think, man, I sang okay on all of these songs. I don't think I did bad. I think I did fine, but I don't think that it's a good representation of what I actually sound like, what I actually sing like. And it's a combination of the situation I put myself in with taking my in-ears out, which is my fault, and just getting songs I didn't really want to sing. What does make me feel a little better though is I've watched a lot of interviews with artists who were on The Voice, and a lot of them say they didn't feel like they performed their best. So I'm not on my own in that. I think most of us feel like we could have done better, but then again, we're artists, and no matter what, we're going to think we could have done better. So it's probably just me being a self-deprecating singer. Another big question I'm not going to go way into because it's a long story, but there was a situation that happened where my mic fell to the ground and I fell to the ground and sang the last few words of the song on the ground. It was very dramatic. It was a very showed up to school in your underwear feeling kind of moment, but it ended up being good for me because it made for a viral moment on social media. So I'm actually glad it happened. But about the mic drop situation, people always want to know how it happened. I can go into this at length in a different video if you're interested, but it's way too long of a story. In a nutshell, I had a mic stand. I was walking around with my hands on it while I was singing. Not like this. I don't know why I'm doing this. I looked a little cooler, I hope. But I was walking around with it. The money note of the song where I go up and hit the high note, have my hands on the mic like this. And when the money note gets there, I open my hands up for dramatic effect, hit the high note, and the song ends. This is all planned for in rehearsal and everything, and it all went fine. What I didn't know was the mic in this spot, that little part where the mic tightens up, I wasn't aware that it wasn't very tight, so I don't know if the guy that gave it to me, the stagehand, didn't tighten it up or if it became loose while I was walking around. Either way, when I let go of the mic, the stand completely collapsed and went to the floor. So basically, here, I'll loosen this up. This is what happened. I hit the high note and it went, but it went all the way down to the ground. Fortunately, I'd been doing this long enough at the time to where I've had way worse things happen to me on stage, so my gut reaction was to drop with it, and it made for this super dramatic moment and ended up being a good TV moment for me. But I think a lot of people thought, I don't know why they would think this, but I think they thought I just had the mic in my hand and I just, for some reason, dropped it. Like I didn't know how to hold on to a mic. So that was the last song that I sang. I don't know if it's because I didn't get voted through because people thought I was an idiot or I didn't know how to hold a microphone, but it was a very dramatic moment, and I'm actually thankful for it because, like I said, it was a viral moment for me and it ended up being a good thing. The coaches afterwards, when they were talking about it, went way like a minute into the commercial time, just talking and ignoring the producers telling them it was time to go to commercial.
I have to know if that was intentional or not.
No, it wasn't intentional.
No, that was very not intentional. Okay, I'm sorry. You deserve to get voted through just because that was the illest improvisation I've ever seen in my life.
So a lot of cool stuff happened. That's actually when Alicia Keys said that thing I showed earlier that's been a source of encouragement for me for a while now. That came after that moment. I don't know if it exists on the internet anymore. I think they might have taken it down. It might be somewhere. I don't know. You can go watch it. It was more funny than it was stressful. It didn't really bother me that much because, like I said, I've had worse things happen. So I didn't mean for it to be as cool of a recovery as it was. My instincts just took over and I did it. That's the mic drop situation. If you want to hear the longer version of it, I can tell you the whole story, but that's going to have to be a different video. Next question. Would I recommend other singers to go on The Voice? Absolutely. 100,000% yes. If you get the opportunity to go on The Voice, if you get called by a scout, if an audition comes near you, I think you should do it. Going back to some of the stuff I said earlier, keep in mind, first and foremost, it's a TV show. Don't forget that. Don't let it hurt your feelings when something crazy happens or you don't get catered to the way that you think you should for your career, because if they don't make a good TV show, they're not going to exist anymore. So it has to be a TV show first, and don't expect it to be your golden ticket. It will get a lot more eyes on you and it will give your career a boost, and it's so much fun. They treat you really well. Hair and makeup and wardrobe treats you the same as they do Kelly and Alicia and Blake and Adam and whoever else. So they really do give you a glimpse into what it would be like to be that caliber of an artist. So that's cool. But also the people that you'll meet on the show, not the celebrity guests and all that kind of stuff, but the other singers. Some of your best friends that you will ever meet will come out of that show. Some of the people that I've stayed in contact with are some of my favorite people on earth, and I would have never have met them if I didn't go on that show. Some of the best singers I've ever met in my life I'm friends with now because I was on The Voice with them. So if you get the opportunity to do it, 100%, regardless of what you think of the show, go do it. Especially if you're one of those whatever goober musicians like I was that thought it's glorified karaoke and that you would never be caught dead doing it. You especially need to go on the show because it'll change your opinion drastically. You'll have a blast and it'll do a lot of good for you. So yes, if you get the opportunity, actually do it. I feel like we're getting to the point to where this video is too long, so I'm going to call this part 1. If you have any questions about what it's like to be on The Voice, what to expect, if you're somebody who just watches The Voice and you would be really interested to know any particulars about what it's like to be on the show, throw your question down in the comment. If you're a singer who's aspiring to go on the show and wants to know what to expect, the positives and the negatives about being on there, any tips of how to navigate your time on the show, how to prepare for the auditions, any of those kind of things, any questions related to my time on The Voice, drop them down in the comments. I'll compile a list and I'll make a part 2 to this video and I will answer your questions. Don't forget, today is the last day to win this 1977 Fender Telecaster. go.getenteredtowin.com/Wilkes. Get entered to win this guitar. It's freaking cool and I want to keep it, but I'm giving it away to one of y'all, so go get it. If you're interested in seeing my performances on The Voice, unfortunately every few years they wipe the internet of all the past performances except maybe the winners, so they don't exist anymore on The Voice's platforms because they got rid of them. They have so many singers that if they left them all up, that would just be a ridiculous amount, so I get it. I'm not complaining, but I've reposted some on my channel, so if you want to see some of those performances, click on this playlist. They're not all there because some of them have been banned for whatever reason. I think it's copyright issues or The Voice really doesn't want anybody to see them for some reason. You can also get them on Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. Thank y'all so much for watching. Let's have a conversation in the comments. Don't forget to drop your questions so I can make a part 2. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet. Hit the bell. Share it with somebody. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye.